So I was standing on my head in Shirshasana in the self-practice in the hall, and he was coming and he's saying, "Oh, this leg's in turning, this leg doesn't turn." So this was more than 30 years ago, and I still remember this slap.
You can still feel it.
And I can still feel it, and
Wow.
I can still think about it, after more than, maybe it was 35 years ago.
Hi, I'm Kym Ben-Yaakov, owner of Malaika Padma, and I'm here with Eyal Shifroni, Senior Iyengar Yoga teacher. Eyal has been studying yoga for 46 years and teaching almost as long. He studied directly with B.K.S. Iyengar, and he's also the author of 8 books for yoga, including A Chair for Yoga. His books have been translated to 10 languages, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. Also, Eyal is my teacher, and I want to thank you, Eyal, for inviting me and being persistent in inviting me, thank you, to study yoga 25 years ago and also to become a teacher. It changed my life.
Yeah, Kym is teaching in my center and also in her own center in Israel.
Yes. And we're going to start with Eyal's background. Like, who were you, Eyal, before you found yoga?
Well, actually, since I remember myself from childhood, I was somehow attracted to yoga. I don't know where it came from, but in the age of 10, we study in school the subject of India, and I have some photos that I do yoga postures.
Really?
In Indian customs, including standing on my head in Padmasana, in the lotus pose.
Wow.
And some other poses, yes. And I was always fascinated by the stories, the marvels that the yogis are able to do. And well, when I got to 18 in Israel, the army is compulsory, so I have to do my army service. But the moment I released from the army, I started to look for yoga teachers. It was the beginning of the 80s. No, actually the end of the 70s, because I started to do yoga at 1978.
Wow.
When I was 24.
This is before the big wave of yoga in the West.
Before, and there was no actually Iyengar yoga teachers in Israel at all. There was mainly Shivananda teachers, so I started with Shivananda. And I was lucky because I started with very good teachers, couples. And after 4 years, I went to the teacher training of Shivananda method. I'm also certified in Shivananda. It was 1 month in a retreat, so it was quite an experience. And over there, the first time I heard the name Iyengar, and this was already 82. And when I came back to Jerusalem, where I studied in the university, I studied mathematics. I was looking for this teacher, and I found her, and I started to study Iyengar. So since 82, I'm in Iyengar. It took like a year or two to shift from Shivananda to Iyengar, but since I discovered Iyengar, I saw that this is the right method for me.
Yeah.
So I persisted on this. I tried a little bit also, like the Ashtanga Vinyasa, the Vini Yoga, but I found out that at least for me, Iyengar is the best. So I stick with it.
And when did you go to Pune, to the Institute?
So yes, the first time I went to Pune was in 1988. Guruji, B.K.S. I call him Guruji, was like 70 years then. And he almost retired from teaching, but he was still teaching. And sometimes he was teaching together with his son, Prashant. And it was very interesting the dialogue they had between them in the class.
Really?
I still remember, things from, they used to say like Guruji said, now I noticed that how to press the big toe. You see, I practiced already 50 years, and now today I suddenly notice it.
So, only after 50 years.
Yes, after 50 years of practice. And then Prashant said, okay, please do it. Don't wait 50 years. So they were kind of a dialogue. And this, I think, was unique because after that, Guruji did not really teach regular classes. He was still always present there. And in his later years, he was staying in Abijata, his granddaughter, in her classes. And he was taking over the class over every now and then. She was teaching, but he was...
He would step in and...
He would step in, or he was lying actually on the Viparita Dandasana bench.
Really?
Yeah. And watching, seeing everything. And then, no, come here, Abhijata, come here, and give some instruction. And then she shouts it to everyone. And so sometimes it was to conduct the class like this.
So he would be on the back arch.
On the back arch.
With his head upside down looking at the class.
Right, yeah. And he could stay like this for like 90 minutes.
Wow.
And
how old was he at that time when he was in a backbend?
Yeah, this was like, it was approaching his 90.
Wow.
Because it was like, I kept coming to Pune for 30 years. So this was, I think, about, around when he was 90.
Wow.
I mean, during this year, he started to work with Abhijata, with his granddaughter, to train her. And now she is the main, and Prashant is still there teaching, but she is the main teacher there.
And do you have any personal experiences that stuck with you for life, with him correcting you?
Yeah, a few times. He was quite a tough teacher. He could be nice when you meet him outside, and he used to sit in the afternoon in the library and writing letter, in correspondence and with students and writing books. He wrote a few books. They're not very known, the Light on Yoga, the Bible of Yoga,
yes.
And Light on Pranayama, Light on Yoga Sutras, and so on. He wrote quite a few books. So he was doing this in the library in the afternoon. And when you come over there, he could be very sweet. But in the class, he was really tough. No compromise.
Sorry, I interrupted, but why do you think he was so tough?
He said that in the class, in order to move the students out of the tamasic mode, tamasic is kind of lazy or heavy inertia, he has to be rajasic. Mm-hmm. Rajas is energy, dynamism. So he said inside is sattvic, which is pure and balanced and quiet. But outside he has to be rajasic in order to take the students out of their tamasic nature. Because they said, the body is tamasic, it doesn't want to move, it's lazy. So you need to shake it and
Yes. And did you experience that?
Sure, yes. So I remember the first time when I was there, I was really not ready. Because I only started the Iyengar to study 82, when it went slow in the beginning, before I developed really a good established self-practice. So I was not ready, and the class was 2 hours, and I remember after 2 hours class that he used to take everything out of you. I don't know if you take the juice out, we have this expression. But
yes.
And I remember I could hardly walk to where I stayed in the guest house, and just fall to sleep to recover because it was really exhausting.
Yeah.
And I remember once I was doing also when you come to the institute, there is time for self-practice. There is a class, 2 hours class, and self-practice. And you can watch also classes of other teachers. So I was standing on my head in Shirshasana in the self-practice in the hall, and he was coming and he's saying, this leg's turning, this leg doesn't turn. So this was more than 30 years ago, and I still remember this slap.
You can still feel it.
And I can still feel it, and I can still think about it, after more than, maybe it was 35 years ago. And when I stand in Shirshasana, I often remember it.
Yeah.
He said he used the, he was slapping, but he said it's not like a punishment, but it's more educational, because he would give you the direction with the slap.
Right.
So.
And instilling that intelligence in the cells of the body that you still remember 30 years later.
Yeah.
How do you know how many times you went to Pune? How often did you go?
I used to go like every other year for 1 month each time. Sometimes even more than that. More than every other year. like 2 consecutive years. And I had a few encounters with him because first, when I translated 2 of his books to Hebrew, the native language we speak here, so I translated from English to Hebrew. And when translating, I had a few questions about the different things in the book. So I met with him in the library and talked with him. And also, I did, many assessments in Iyengar Yoga. There are many levels. So, there's introductory 1, introductory 2, then junior 1, 2, 3, senior 1, 2. And then for 3, my teacher, Faik Birya, said he doesn't assess anymore for senior intermediate 3. So I have to send photos of my asanas to Guruji. And I sent, and he wrote me a letter, I promote you to senior 3, but when you come to Pune, you come and talk with me.
Okay.
And I give you comments.
Wow.
And then we were sitting in the library and he was drawing lines on the photos that I sent him. So here it should be like this, and here it should be like that. He gave the alignment of the exact alignment of, and also he said, okay, in the next morning, when practice time, you come, and I'll give you some more corrections. And he did that. And always when he's working with somebody, everybody, you are there for self-practice, but when Guruji is teaching or working with somebody, everybody comes to see. So the entire crowd was about 100 people was seeing how he works with me on some tough backbends and stuff like this.
I keep saying wow because it seems just amazing to have that much personal.
Right, and also I was fortunate enough to be there in 2014 when he passed away.
Wow, really?
Yeah, actually when I came,
yes,
he passed away on 20th of August. I came there like a week or 10 days before, and he was already in bad condition. He was last week he was sitting on a wheelchair, and then they took him to the hospital. And then when he passed away, we actually kind of expected it because we knew the situation is deteriorating very quickly. His kidneys stopped to function. So when I woke in the morning, I was looking at the internet and I saw that he passed away. So I came to the institute, and it was a very special moment because usually, the Iyengars, they are not nice. They don't try to be nice. They are tough teachers. They are good teachers, but they require everything. So they're not kind of nice. But at that moment, the heart was open, and Gita ji and Abhijata was standing. Gita is his daughter, standing in front of the house. And usually you don't go in the house. The house is just a few meters away from the institute. It's not far away. It's just like maybe 5 meters away. But usually you don't go in the house just as a student. But at that time, they put his body inside the house, and we formed a line, and everybody could come and say like condolences to Gita and to Abhijata, and then go inside and be alone with him for a few minutes.
Yes.
Say goodbye, and so this was very exciting. And then in the afternoon, we went to the crematorium, actually, because they do the funeral ceremony, and then, of course, they burn. According to the Hindu tradition, they burn the body. So it was a long ceremony with Brahmins and everything, and then they put the fire. So it was a very touching moment to be there, and I didn't plan it, of course, but it just came out that I was there in August. I used to go in August usually.
Yeah. Very memorable experience and emotional.
Right, yeah.
Wow. All right. So let me move on to your practice after all of this help and assistance from Guruji and your years of practice. Can I just ask, how often do you practice? And why?
I practice at least 6 days a week.
Okay.
Because the practice is for me, it makes my day. So I try to devote like every day at least 2 hours, sometimes even more. If I don't teach in the morning, I can extend my practice. And practice, it brings me kind of silence and clarity. Often when you wake up in the morning and, you have many obligations, I have a center to run, I have my books, I have workshops all around the world, so the mind is sometimes busy. Say, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. But after the practice, the mind becomes silent, and then you know exactly what you need to do and what you can, delay for tomorrow. Maybe this you can drop, maybe this you can drop. You can have, more time for yourself, and this kind of clarity that because the mind becomes quiet in the practice. This is the main thing for me, why I continue to practice. Of course, it's also the body, to keep the body healthy and, it's good movement and flexibility and strength. But the main thing is really the mental effect of making you calm. What Patanjali said, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, quieting the mental fluctuations.
And with that quietness, it helps you gain clarity as well.
Right, yes.
And know where to put your energy.
Right.
And where not to waste your energy.
Right. So, yeah, that's about it. The clarity that you get, the right perception. Because when you are not so occupied with all your obligations and planning and worries, so your mind kind of become empty like the sky, empty and vast. So even if there's one cloud, it passes away. So like thinking, but it's kind of slower. And when you do the Shavasana in the end, you really feel this clarity. And then you get a better perception. So it's about good perception of the reality. Because often our perception is often distorted. We we meet somebody and we think he's not so nice to me. But maybe it's just, in our mind.
Right.
But when you get the right perception and the clarity, then you see the real picture. So, yeah.
It's,
okay, so that's why
it explains. Sorry, you were going to say.
No. I'm just saying this is why I keep my practice, and
Yes.
usually, for me, it's kind of discipline. I don't ask myself, do I feel like practicing or not? It's not like feel like. It's something I decided to do, and I do 6 days a week.
I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, 1 day a week, which is in Israel, it is Saturday is a day off.
Yes.
I sometimes find myself practicing, but not in the same way, and not like at 6 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes, it's 9 a.m. or in the afternoon, or sometimes I don't practice on Saturday. Sometimes there are family, planning, things like this. So for Saturday, it's not discipline, but 6 days a week, yes.
But do you miss it?
Yeah, so if I miss it, then I go to my studio and practice. But it's not like, I have to make myself practice even if I don't feel like 1 day a week.
Yeah, I see you for many years standing on your head.
Yeah.
Almost any chance you get.
Right, yes.
You will stand on your head.
This is my best, my favorite pose. Although in yoga you should, like all the poses the same way, but still, we're human beings. And inversions are, for me, and especially Shirshasana, the headstand is the best.
Yes, and for very long periods of time.
Yeah. So I try to stand at least 10 minutes every day, often 15 minutes. And sometimes when, I decided to do like inversions practice, then I can stay up to half an hour for Shirshasana, and then I do half an hour in Sarvangasana, which is shoulder stand, and then another like 10 minutes in Setubandha Sarvangasana. So it's a kind of a practice which is mostly inversion.
And I'm wondering if anything has changed. You recently posted 70 poses for your 70th birthday.
Mhm.
And I'm sure the practice has changed, and I'd like to hear about that, but has the length of time you spend in Shirshasana and other inversions, has it increased or decreased with age?
In Shirshasana, it didn't change very much. It's the same. But I do like less asanas in the practice. I don't do so much jumping, almost no jumping, which I used to do when I was younger. And I stay longer in asanas. And actually, I still do all the asanas, including standing poses, arm balancing, inversions, everything, back bends. And actually, some asanas that I only recently succeeded to do.
Wow.
Because
really?
you stay longer and you are more mature in your approach. So you can relax better. And then, like Malasana 1, I could not hold, and now I can do it. So at the age of 70, usually, sportsmen or dancers or whatever, performing arts, 25, they are considered old.
Right.
Already. And in yoga, you can go on and on. Of course, at a certain age, the body becomes weaker.
Yes.
And you have to change your practice, but I'm still not on that stage. I'm still practicing quite, strong.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if age brings something to your practice that you didn't have before, in addition to poses that you can suddenly find yourself able to do. What does age give?
Well, it gives more maturity. And also, the more I go deeper into the philosophy of yoga, so it becomes like part of your life. So this is increasing, with years of practice. You start to incorporate this philosophy, this approach to your entire life.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think about when we talk about your standing on your head. I know that you do this a lot in nature. You don't only practice inside of the studio.
No, actually,
you've written a book about doing yoga in nature. It's lovely photos and a beautiful,
it's really
beautiful
a nice book because it's colors, and there are 3 chapters. One, they practice on the beach, and it's called Yoga in Nature and Natural Props for Yoga. Okay. Because in Iyengar Yoga, we use props. And then some people, they say, okay, if I go to nature, how can I practice without props? So I found out, that actually nature provides very useful props. And on the sand, you can use the sand as a prop. For example, the most maybe is Sarvangasana, that you need many blankets shoulder stand to create a platform. But in the beach, I don't bring anything, even not a yoga mat. I just bring a belt. That's it, and a towel. And then you dig a small hole for the head. So the head is below the level of the shoulders, and that's what you need, actually.
That's simple.
And it's simple. And then, it's actually better because you can adjust the hole, small hole that you make. And also when you go to Alasana or to Setubandha Sarvangasana, you find that your toes are the level of your shoulders. While if you raise your shoulders on a platform, you have to go lower, which is change, the form of the pose. So, and also you can use slopes, and you can put, for standing asanas, you can dig your foot in the sand, so it makes you stable. So, and luckily I live very close to the beach, to the Mediterranean beach, and luckily we have a good climate in Israel for 7 or 8 months that I can go to the beach.
Yeah.
Only in December, January, February, it becomes too cold. So from the spring until the late autumn, I can practice on the beach. And so often, there are classes by other teachers in the studio, so I don't have a good practice space. I mean, I do have a practice space also in my house, which I use in the winter, but in the summer, I prefer to go to the beach.
This is something important, to have a practice space in your house.
Yes, I have.
I was going to ask if you have a tip for people who want to start a daily practice, and maybe this is one of the important things is to create a space.
To create a space. And Iyengar said that the most difficult asana is to unfold the mat.
Yes.
Because this you need the willpower.
Yes.
And often, even now after like more than 45 years of practice, sometimes I don't feel like practicing when I wake up in the morning because it's an effort. So, but as I said, I'm disciplined. So I said, okay, it's my path. I chose this path. I need to practice. I need to be persistent. But once you unfold the mat and you do your first Adho Mukha Svanasana, the downward facing dog, everything flows and you don't want to stop the practice. So maybe if you have a space and you can leave your sticky mat even, you can spread it and leave it, no, don't fold it, maybe it's a good idea. Actually, they asked me for like a British magazine, a yoga magazine, to write an article about how to develop self-practice. So we can put the link, and because I give there many advices of how to start self-practice and how to keep it going.
It's a very hard thing for many students to leave the studio and the teacher.
Yes.
And I was thinking of you because your teacher was in Pune in India.
Right.
So you actually had to develop most of your practice on your own.
Yeah. So not that I compare myself to Guruji, but in a way it is a little bit like this, because Guruji was studying 2 years with his guru, Krishnamacharya, in Mysore. And then Krishnamacharya sent him to teach in Pune. And this was about 1,000 kilometers away. And in India of the 1930s, it was like, very difficult to travel there.
Yes.
So he was on his own and he has to develop his system on his own. And after 2 years, I left Jerusalem because I finished my education in the university, and I moved to the northern part of Israel. And then actually I didn't have a regular classes with a teacher. So I had to develop my self-practice. But of course, many international senior teachers started to come to Israel. And I used to go to Pune. I used to go also to other places to study with senior teachers. So I got the knowledge, but still I have to develop the discipline to practice, on my own without a teacher, which it's difficult.
It's very difficult.
Yes. For many people, this obstacle, because it's easy when you come with a group. There is like a setting, and the teacher tells you what to do. You don't need to think, what should I do now, and so on. But I think self-practice is maybe more important. I mean, it's good to come to a class. You get inspiration, you get knowledge, information. But when you're in a self-practice, you're on your own. And then you can meet all the tendencies, the laziness sometimes, or sometimes the too much energy, which is rajasic.
Yes. And what do you do in that experience? I'm going to switch my position to Vajrasana. Are you comfortable?
I'll change my crossing. Well, so there's kind of practice when you feel that you're tamasic, you're heavy, and lazy. Yes. You do more dynamic practice, and when you feel rajasic, which is too much energy or restlessness, I would say, then I do inversion and I do forward bends. Wow. So the practice can balance this.
Yeah. So a little bit opposite of what you're actually feeling.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You won't do a handstand until you exhaust yourself, and then you don't feel so rajasic anymore.
Instead I do inversions, and after staying in Shirshasana for like 10-15 minutes, the mind becomes more quiet. Then you do some forward bends, so it's also very pacifying, relaxing. And and sometimes you feel your tendency, which comes also in a group setting. It comes we have the natural tendency to want attention, to want everybody to look at us and to say, he's so good. His practice is... So this is kind of ego asserting itself, and this kind that you can notice. But you can even notice in your self-practice, because sometimes you do the self-practice to be better and then to impress the teacher or the other students in the class.
Yes.
So this could be in the mind even if you are alone. So you notice all these tendencies which are natural.
And sometimes the opposite as well. You feel discouraged because you see
Right.
people doing things you can't do, or you've tried to work on a pose for a very long time and it doesn't come.
Yeah,
Maybe you need another 30 years, like Eyal.
No, but these two approaches of I'm so good, look at me, or I'll never be able to do it, I'm not able, I'm not flexible, I'm not. It's both are ego, the same ego that, so you just do what you can, do your practice. Don't, it's the mind, the body just does what he can. You cannot do what you cannot, right? But the mind, build all these stories that I cannot do it. I'm not competent. I'm not disciplined. I'm not that. Or I am so much this and this. Okay, right. It's only the mind and the ego.
Sometimes I feel like injuries also can play a part in this.
Right, yeah.
We don't know how to handle it. Can make us stop, or it can make us afraid.
Right. Yeah. So over motivation. Like injury, I think there are two reasons for injury in yoga. One is ambition, and the other is insensitivity, that you're not sensitive enough to your body, which happens in the beginning, but if you're quick to correct and you're not ambitious, then usually the body can recover.
And an injury can almost be like a teacher. Suddenly you are sensitive.
Yes. You become
it's a hard way to learn, a hard teacher.
You become, but sometimes we need this lesson, and you become less ambitious because you see that it's not good.
Yes.
The body speaks.
I want to ask you about your books, but I'm very curious. You said you have in the nature props that there's three sections.
So one is practicing on the beach. One is practicing on the forest using the trees as props, and one is practicing on the mountains using the rocks as the props. There are many nice photos that you can, we demonstrate how to use the natural props, and they are more flexible than because the rocks you have in many sizes and many shapes, so you can find what you need.
Exactly the right one.
Yeah, and we did this in the desert, in Israeli, and also in Egypt, in Sinai. We took the photos and the beach here, and also in the forest. So it's a very nice book. My first book was actually this first version of a chair for yoga, and this was translated to many languages. It becomes a very successful book, and then people started to know me and to invite me to give workshops, and I happen to travel quite a lot to teach all over the world, and I'm blessed for it. I'm lucky that I'll be able to share this my experience and to give a little bit my own gift to people and to the world.
Do you find with so much traveling, what does yoga, how does it assist you? I as your student, see you land from China and teach like 4 hours later. You have so much energy.
I think the practice gives you energy, and for jet lag, also inversions are good, and some supine poses you can do, supported supine with deep breathing, and you get your energy.
Is there a pose that you do when you land that helps you with jet lag? And
usually I do inversion, Shirshasana and Savangasana, the headstand and shoulder stand, and some supine like Supta Padangushta, Supta Baddha Konasana, Supta Virasana, Matsyasana, this kind of asanas which are supported on a bolster.
And is there anything that you do on the flight, on the long flights?
Yeah, especially if the flight is not too crowded. I always try to, every now and then, to stand and to stretch like this and to do some twist. If there is more space, I can even do, Adho Mukha Svanasana or some standing poses in the aisle.
Maybe you're encouraging other people to practice.
Maybe I didn't see anybody join me on the flights, but
I think they should teach yoga on flights. It would be very helpful. So, what languages have your books been translated to?
This first book, A Chair for Yoga, was translated to about 10 languages, including Korean, Chinese, Japanese, recently Vietnamese. And I went to Vietnam for, to inaugurate the book.
Inaugurate.
Yeah. And all the main languages like Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, Polish, French, Italian, yeah.
Don't forget the main languages.
No, of course.
If you forget someone.
No, I wrote it. Actually, this book I wrote first in Hebrew, kind of first version, and then I decided to write it in English to have it for wider audience. So and I extended it a little bit. So the Hebrew version is more is thinner. So so English, of course, I write the books in English.
Yes.
And then people are translating them.
I saw actually this book. I was fortunate enough to assist you teaching in China, and I saw this book first in Chinese.
Right. It came out. It came out in Chinese.
Yeah.
It came out in Chinese before. Yeah. All of my books are translated into Chinese, and they are popular in China because yoga is very popular in China. And some of them came out in Chinese before even in English.
Really?
Really, yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, I sell the books mostly through Amazon, so sometimes it takes some time to format the book such it will be good for the requirements of Amazon, because they have kind of requirements for how they can print the books.
Yes.
And so I just send them the PDF of the books, and they print it and sell it.
You had written books before, right?
Yes. So as I said, I think that as a yogi, if you have some love, some passion, something that you love to do, and you would be ready to do even if you don't get paid for it, then you have something in you that you can share with people, and you should share it. You should give this gift. And I was studying mathematics and computer science. I even made a PhD in computer science about artificial intelligence when it was still, because I finished my PhD in '92. There was very pioneering in artificial intelligence, but I didn't want to continue in academic career because I wanted to devote more time to yoga. So I went to teach in a college, and I also worked for the School of Technology of the Open University in Israel, which is writing books about computer science. I wrote about the Java language, which I didn't study. I had to study it on my own, and then write a book about it, and also databases and other things that I wrote. And so I learned how to write, because it's kind of a profession. You need to know how to write in such a way that it will be clear, will be concise.
Which also requires dedication, which you also have.
So I combine my knowledge in yoga, many years of experience of studying and teaching, and the knowledge of how to write books, which came from my job in the Open University. And so I was lucky enough to be able to share this knowledge, and I get so many good feedbacks from people all over the world that use my books, and they say that they help them very much in the practice. So it makes me happy that I can share this.
It's very creative as well.
It's also creative. Yes.
You've come out with another volume and another volume of props.
Yes, so I have 8 books, 4 props for yoga.
Do you have a new book coming?
Yes, so now I'm writing, the last book that I published is in Props for Yoga Volume 4. It's about backbends. The first one was standing, then sitting and forward, and the third about inversions, and the fourth about backbends, and then 2 versions of the chair book. This is the original one, And this is it's called the extended chair for yoga. You see, it's
many more ideas.
Many more ideas came over the years. Yes. And also the Psychophysical Lab and Yoga in Nature, which I wrote with Ohad, is a friend, student of mine for 25 years, and a professor of philosophy. So we combine, he wrote the philosophical part, and I wrote the more yoga part, the practical part. So it combines like theory with practice. So I'm working now on a new book, Ropes for Yoga.
Ropes.
Using the ropes. There's so many things you can do with these wall ropes. So I hope it will be.
I look forward to that. Definitely.
Yeah, it's in the process.
And I guess because of these books, this also opened the world to you for people to invite you to teach.
Right. Nobody knew me before. I mean, I was quite known in Israel already, but not outside of Israel at all. And then when I published the books in English, actually, I started by writing notes for myself. And because my handwriting is not so clear and I'm not very organized in this notebook, so I put it in the computer. Mm-hmm. In the computer, I'm much more organized. And then I said, okay, let me put some photos because otherwise maybe it's not so clear. So I did it for myself, actually. Mm. And then I said, okay, if it's use it for like preparing classes and workshops, maybe other teachers can use it. So I printed this 300 copies in Hebrew. And I came with the pack of books to one workshop, and it was sold out immediately.
They're wonderful books. Yes. I use them all the time.
So one of the teachers actually took it to she was traveling to the United States and she gave some workshops there and she used my books. This one, the first one, Chair for Yoga. And she came back and she said, they asked, why don't they have this book in English? You have to translate it to English. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning I was, well, it's not something special, everybody can write such a book. And I didn't want to, but she said, no. She really kind of forced me. She was quite a strong woman and a yoga teacher. And okay, I said I translate it. And then immediately it became like very, like viral, almost. Yeah. A good virus, I hope. And and then people started to know me and to invite me to workshops. And I've been already teaching in 34 countries, different countries. And to many countries I come often, like almost every year, like in Europe, Italy, Germany.
They book you far in advance.
Yes.
Yes.
So
you never know. I don't think you would have thought in your 40s even that this is where you would be today.
No,
life can take you in places.
The life took me. I didn't plan it. I didn't plan to be an international teacher, and I didn't even plan to write books. It just happened on its own, for my practice and my knowledge in writings. And and then there's a story about the flying carpet,
No.
No? Oh, no, and it's 1,000 Nights and Nights.
Oh, yes, okay.
So this book was like the flying chair for me because it started to fly me all over the world.
It sprouted wings and...
Yes.
Wow.
I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share the knowledge with people and to see that people are, are enriched by it.
Definitely. I'm one of the ones that has been enriched by your teaching and by your practice. I mean, you're an example, a true example. Also, you're wearing a Malaika Padma shorts, which I recently become the owner of. Yes. And I actually wear the shorts because you wore the shorts.
Yeah, well, before that, Malaika was the owner. Yes. So she started to give me a few pairs of shorts. Now Kym gave me a few more.
Of course.
So I have plenty. And
why do you wear these shorts?
Because they're very comfortable. Mm-hmm. They allow you, the freedom to spread your legs, move without being worried. And they don't really don't disturb, because the fabric or the way that they are made is very comfortable.
Mhm.
And it doesn't, sometimes even after class I forget it on, and
Yeah, I have
so
many
yeah,
clients
thank you
like
for
that.
giving me some as a gift.
Well, of course, but thank you for introducing. You know, I didn't necessarily want to wear these shorts. I started studying yoga when I was 30, and I wanted to wear tights and be fashionable. And once I became a teacher, I started realizing that it was the right short to wear,
Right,
because it
yes.
showed all of the anatomy
Right,
of the
yes.
leg, and
Yeah, in
it's
Iyengar
very
Yoga
tidy.
we try to expose the body. I mean, of course, you have to be modest, don't. But with a short and a t-shirt, and then you can see your own body, the teacher can see your body. So yeah, because you need to see the knees, you need to see the thighs and the arms. So these shorts are very handy.
Great. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, well, let's say it's been a very, very nice, long interview that we're going to value for a long time. But we'll end it. Maybe you can leave us. Let me guide you like this. When I came to yoga, I was only interested in the physical, and you introduced in the lessons the combination of the philosophical into the asanas and the pranayama.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you'd want to say anything about that, adding just a bit of the philosophy in there, something to leave us with.
Well, I think Patanjali said, in the second sutra, in the Yoga Sutras, Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And then he said, which means to make the mind quiet. And then he said, Tada Drashtu Svarupe Avashtana, which means then the seer, the one inside, the pure awareness that is inside you, is in its own splendor. So you can get in touch with this, when you move all the pills of your ego, of your desires, and aversions and attractions, pushing and pulling, the life is always, and always we go up, up and down, all the vicissitudes of life. And yoga helps you to be more stable, more equanimous. And then by getting the mind quiet, you can get in touch with the real, self, with capital S, inside you. This is the basic philosophy of yoga, and then your life will become better. Then you suffer the less dukkha, less like pain and suffering in your life. And even if there's pain and there is sorrow, you know how to keep your peace of mind internally. It doesn't mean that sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're happy, but you're not so much devastated by all these ups and downs. So I think this practice, combining, the practice with the philosophy, will help you to have a more joyful and peaceful life. So I can just recommend you to continue with this practice, or if you don't practice, to start practicing.
Yes.
And also, read the sutras, read the interpretations of the sutras, and delve also into the philosophy, because it gives you, what is really the goal of yoga. Why you do yoga? It's not only for the body. It's for the entire human being, the entire personality, body and mind, and the soul.
Thank you very much, Eyal.
Thank you for this opportunity to share.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.